In Hesiod's cycle of the ages, there arose the possibility for an age of heroes to emerge against the backdrop of the Kali Yuga, a restoration of Golden Age principles that would bring the dawn of a new cycle. According to Hesiod, the generation of heroes was created by Zeus, who represents the Olympian principle. Thus, when we speak of heroes, we are not referring to someone who merely does good deeds, but one who has attained a supernatural immortality on a transcendent plane. This immortality is the holy grail the knights of the legends strive for, and their many adventures serve as initiatic allegories in pursuit of the ultimate prize. The mythological hero has, as his raw material, what Evola calls a titanic type, the coarse, brutish, unrefined warrior. This raw material must be transformed and transfigured into an Olympian type, through the overcoming of the human condition, which is also the path of chivalric knighthood. This is a dangerous path, and mythology is littered with would-be heroes from Prometheus to the biblical Adam, who failed to make the Olympian leap. Evola outlines two conditions that must be fulfilled if an Olympian hero is to be made out of a mere warrior. In The Mystery of the Grail, he writes, "First of all, it is necessary to show the proof and the confirmation of the virile qualification. Thus, in the epic and knightly symbolism, we find a series of adventures, feats, and fights. This qualification should not become a limitation, a hubris, a closure of the eye, and it should not paralyze the capability of opening oneself up to a transcendent force, in function of which alone can the fire really become light and free itself." In other words, the daring deeds of the knights were proof that they possessed a masculine active virility, that they were qualified to pursue a heroic transcendent path. In risking life and limb, a man laughed at death, accepting his fate with equanimity, free of any yearning towards either outcome. But if he were to allow a prideful ego and vanity to creep in as a result of his deeds, he would close himself off from any higher transcendent possibilities and disqualify himself from the Olympian solar path. Evola continues and says, "Second, such a liberation should not signify a cessation of the inner tension. Thus, a further test consists in adequately affirming the virile quality on the supersensible plane. The consequence of this is the Olympian transformation, or the achievement of that dignity which in initiatory traditions has always been designated as regal. This is the decisive point that differentiates the heroic experience from every mystical evasion and from every pantheistic confusion. Among the various symbols that may refer to this point is the symbolism of the woman." This is an important clarification and caveat, and one that must be discussed in greater detail. When one achieves an active virility, it is essential that he not become passive, but instead continue to maintain that active state. This places him in a constant state of overcoming, of asserting his virile center, and it is this overcoming that creates the spiritual victory of the hero. In order to constantly remain in that active state, attention must be maintained, an agitation of sorts provided, something for it to react against and strengthen itself on. This can be provided in the form of sensory temptations, as the victorious overcoming is always and necessarily the mastery of the higher mind over the cravings of the body. This type of ascesis is not that of repressing desires, but actively stimulating them and then refusing to indulge in them no matter how strong the craving. This is a somewhat foreign idea to the modern view that tends to swing from one extreme to another, either encouraging all sensory indulgences as good in themselves, or in encouraging a total avoidance of cravings that turn into harmful addictions. But neither extreme advocates self-control, discipline, and mastery of those desires. This, however, is the path of the hero. The hero does not shun from his presence those things he desires. Instead, he exposes himself to the temptation as much as possible, always focusing on overcoming it, on saying no to the desires of the body. Removing whatever is triggering his desire doesn't mean he has overcome anything. He is simply disengaging from the dynamic tension of the material body versus the higher mind. To avoid triggering desire in order not to have to overcome it means no heroism can ever be forthcoming. The desire still exists in him latently, ready to spring forth whether he wills it or not, should he encounter the object of his craving. The hero arouses his desire on purpose, overcomes it, and uses it to transform himself. He must not drop the inner tension between yin and yang. The desires of the flesh continue to pull downward, and the immovable center within him stands firm against it, drawing his eyes higher. In holding this balance, it ignites a transcendent fire within him, generating the regal solar quality. This corresponds to the Hermetic redwork, the rubedo, in which the masculine principle of spirit transfigures and subsumes the feminine principle of matter. This is how the Titanic element is transfigured into the Olympian.